Hello again. If you mention concentration camps these days, the minds of most listeners will turn at once to images of Auschwitz, which is for so many people the archetypal concentration camp. Auschwitz was, of course, an extermination camp rather than a concentration camp. There is a great difference between the two concepts, although during the Second World War conditions deteriorated so sharply in places such as Dachau that the distinction became blurred. Concentration camps are simply places where you lock people up behind barbed wire fences, not for what they have done, but for who they are. Civilians are held without charge for as long as the government cares to keep them locked up, and they have no recourse to the courts. This might be because they are Jews or communists or Republicans, Jehovah's Witnesses, all sorts of things. The essence of the thing is, though, that it is because of who they are that they are locked up. They are very different from both prisoner of war camps and also extermination camps, where the aim is to kill people rather than imprison them. Britain set the trend in concentration camps and gave Nazi Germany a pattern to follow. In February 1939, for example, Sir Neville Henderson, British ambassador to Germany, had a meeting with Hermann Göring. In the course of their encounter in Berlin, Henderson denounced the loathsome and detestable brutalities, as he put it, taking place in concentration camps such as Dachau and Buchenwald. For answer, Göring went to a bookshelf and took down the volume of a German encyclopedia covering the letter K and showed the ambassador the entry for concentration lager, which began, first used by the British in the South African War. It was during the First World War that Britain really began organising camps, which the Germans copied in the 1930s after Hitler came to power. The thumbnail to this video, for instance, shows a postcard produced in 1916, which is labelled quite unambiguously Concentration Camp Frongoch, Bala, which is in Wales. The year before this particular camp was established, England witnessed a scene which provided the example which was later followed by the Nazis during the Kristallnacht pogrom in 1938. On the 9th of November 1938, mobs in Germany attacked shops and other premises owned by Jews. In a number of cities, synagogues were also burned. The response of the authorities was not to punish the perpetrators, but rather to arrest their victims and march them off to protective custody in concentration camps. Kristallnacht, also known as the Night of Broken Glass, attracted worldwide condemnation. As with other aspects, though, of the German experience with concentration camps, the British had already been there, and in this case they watched a version of the Night of the Broken Glass unfold in their own cities 23 years earlier. In Liverpool on the 10th of May 1915, angry crowds attacked shops belonging to people with German names. Some of the owners of these shops have been living in Britain for 50 years. Some of them have been born in this country and had sons serving in the British Army. But it made no difference to the furious mobs. Houses were looted and what could not be carried away was thrown into the street and set on fire. Similar scenes took place across the country, from London to Salford. The reaction of the authorities was revealing. As the Manchester Guardian reported on the 11th of May, apropos of the rioting in Liverpool, a great many Austrians and Germans in the city who have hitherto been allowed their liberty are now, it is stated, to be interned in order that they may be preserved from mob violence. A few days later, columns of civilians were being marched out of the city under military escort. Their destination? A concentration camp. 2 days after the rioting, the Chief Constable of Manchester ordered the arrest of every German shopkeeper in the city. Similar actions were taken elsewhere. The pretext for rounding up the harmless butchers and tobacconists was precisely the same as that used by the Germans in the aftermath of Kristallnacht. which was that the men were being taken into protective custody to save them from harm. Just as in 1938, few people, even in Germany itself, had believed this was the true reason that the men were being arrested. Neither did they in England in May 1915. It was widely known that the arrests were really reprisals for the sinking of the passenger ship Lusitania, the event which had triggered the rioting in the first place. I've written a fairly lengthy piece on Substack about the first camp set up specifically for British political prisoners at about the same time, rather than Germans. It was in a remote part of Wales, and the Germans later used the camp as a model when they set up Dachau.